Hi, I am Anna from miniOrange. Today we're going to see how to configure SAML Single Sign-On in TalentLMS using WordPress as an IDP. Let's get started. Sign in to your TalentLMS account as administrator. Under Account and Settings, click on the Users link. Click on Single Sign-On SSO button. Scroll down, the following endpoints will be required to configure WordPress as IDP. Let's see how to configure WordPress as IDP. Go to the WordPress IDP plugin, and click on the Service Providers tab. Type the name of service provider as TalentLMS. To provide the SP Entity ID, switch back to the TalentLMS dashboard. Copy the entity ID, and paste it into the SP Entity ID field of WordPress IDP. Switch back to TalentLMS. Copy the ACS URL and paste it under the corresponding ACS URL field in WordPress IDP. Again, switch back to TalentLMS dashboard. Copy the single logout service URL and paste it under the corresponding single logout URL field in WordPress IDP. Now select the appropriate name ID format. Enable the checkbox for assertion signed, and click on the Save button to save the configuration. Your settings have been saved successfully. Let's see how to configure attribute mapping. Navigate to the Attribute Role Mapping tab. Select the name ID attribute as user email and click on Save. In the User Attributes section, click on Add button to add more attributes. Type the first attribute name as username. Then under the User Metadata column, click on the drop-down list and select the corresponding attribute. Type the second attribute name as first name. Then under the User Metadata column, select the corresponding attribute. Type the third attribute name as last name. Then under the User Metadata column, select the corresponding attribute. Type the fourth attribute name as email. Then under the User Metadata column, select the corresponding attribute. And click on Save. Now let's configure TalentLMS as service provider. Click on the IDP Metadata tab. Following endpoints will be required to configure TalentLMS as SP. Now, switch to the Users tab of TalentLMS SP. Type the name of your identity provider. To provide the SAML certificate, switch to the IDP Metadata tab in the WordPress IDP plugin. Click on the Download option to download SAML certificate. Open the certificate in Notepad and copy its contents. Now switch to the Users tab of TalentLMS Service Provider. Click on the Paste Your SAML Certificate (PEM Format) option, and then paste the SAML certificate. Switch back to the IDP Metadata tab of the WordPress IDP plugin. Copy SAML login URL, and paste it under the Remote Sign-In URL field of the service provider. Once again, switch back to the IDP Metadata tab of the WordPress IDP plugin. Copy SAML logout URL, and paste it under the Remote Sign-Out URL field of the service provider. Configure attribute values as shown here. Now scroll down and click on Save and check your configuration button. If you get this message, then you have successfully configured SSO. Thank you for watching our video. Check out our WordPress IDP plugin for premium features like attribute mapping, role mapping, multiple SP support, and many more.